I've purchased this Uniden U5060 CB radio kit, including an antenna and a bracket, which is this particular one, but I'm not going to fit that bracket. And I have just been watching a video from a young fella on YouTube called North Oz, OZ, and he has a Navara exactly the same as mine, and I'm going to follow the method that he used to install his CB radio. The first thing I've done is to remove the glove box from this D22 Navara, and it comprises 6 screws, and the whole unit then just pulls out of this section. And behind there is one rubber grommet, which is quite hard to actually determine when you look under the bonnet, and that's why this young fellow's video was so helpful, because he's pointed out exactly which way to go. The grommet that we're looking at is that one down in that area there, and what he did, and I'm going to do the same thing, is he poked a small hole in it with a wire coat hanger and drew the wires from the inside of the cab back up, and then we will run them to my auxiliary battery here. The other fellow, he didn't have a battery and auxiliary, and he had to run his wires all across the firewall and back around there. I fortunately won't have to do that, which cuts it down, the time down a little bit. Because as with everything that we buy, we should check the contents of the box before we do anything, which is what I am going to do now. I know that there is an aerial in here because we had it out yesterday. This appears to be the actual unit itself, which is true. Hang on, I'll put this down and we'll put it onto a tripod. Okay, so this will be the actual unit, which is a little tiny thing. Got a connector on it, that's good, that means it's going to work, I hope. We'll get that over there. We then have the extension to the antenna. In here is an antenna unit, which we actually opened up in the shop yesterday, because where I purchased this, there was a young Italian man named Frank, who is a qualified electrician, and we were discussing these aerials and what have you, and we opened this one up just to determine what it was, and it's okay, it's fine. And then what do we have in here? We have probably the microphone mountings, yes, a couple of mountings for the microphone, and in here we have the bracket. That's the Uniden UH bracket, which I'm not going to use because I'm going to attach the antenna to the bull bar. And in here we have some cable with fuses, and that I believe is an extension. Yeah, that's an extension for the microphone, because the microphone only has a certain length, and when we put it, depending on where I put it, I may need to extend the length. And then we have a bracket and some fitting screws, etc., and little rubber grommet bits and pieces. So everything seems to be there. I'm going to get rid of all the extraneous cardboard because that's just a waste. Put everything in there before I actually start doing anything. And then, of course, as somebody pointed out, us blokes, we never read those things. However, I am going to. This particular unit has a speaker, and I've decided to mount it here on the passenger side because there are no controls on this actual radio itself. All of the controls are actually on the microphone, and so I've decided to put it over there, mainly because of the length of cable, which will just about fit across there. And now I'm going to see where I'm going to position the microphone holder in the driver's Well, they say that one of the hardest decisions you make with a CB is where to install the damn thing. So as I've said before, I put this one down here on the passenger side because it has no controls there. The controls are on the microphone, and I've installed the microphone just up here on the dash. There we are, bit of that self-adhesive, very strong tape, and that should be fine. I was going to use an extension cable, but I figured that if I sit in the driver's seat, I can actually pick that up and control it with my left hand. There's enough cable there to use that. So the next thing now is I've actually just got to wire the thing in. Now, of course, before doing anything electrical in the car, you're really supposed to know what you're doing. So I have done some research on these adder circuit they call them, and it's this particular little thing in here. There are lots of videos on the internet showing you how they do, but I did a test first of all to find my accessory socket, which is on this is my fuse box, and as they say, they all have little maps, and I've decided to plug it into my fuse there. It's a double-sided fuse. You have to find by way of a multimeter which one is the power out and which is the power not going in or coming back out. So you've got a neutral and a positive. And I have put this one in, and I'm running a test on my multimeter over to the cable. This is just a mock-up. This is before I actually even do anything about fixing the unit to or plugging the power in. That's going to be the last thing that I do. One of the reasons I did this is A, it's for convenience, but B, I can't get through the firewall in this car. I have so many bits and pieces. You can see I've got one of these, and I've got these TVs which come from the back, and then GPSs, and then I use all these things over here with that plugged in phone chargers and all sorts of other bits and pieces, power for the units that are sitting on the dash. And so my firewall has basically been chock-a-block up. So what I plan to do now is, and I'll go around the other side of the car, is to run my cable, my aerial cable, which will be up on here, and I'll run it round this firewall down the back underneath the chassis all the way down there, and you can see there is actually, if you can make it out, there is a run of cables down there with conduit on it. I'm going to run it down through the chassis and bring it up on the passenger side through the floor. There is a grommet in here. I'll bring it up and run it in underneath there, and then under the thing and over to that unit there. But as I say, in the meantime, what I'm doing is I'm checking that I have power to we've got to get some light in here, power to my cable, and I've just checked that the red cable has power, the accessory switch is on, and the red cable has the power coming to it. The negative black has no power, of course, because that completes the circuit. So I'll be able to, I know that when I plug this in, once I hardwire it in, that the unit will actually turn on when I turn the ignition on. Okay, next phase. I have attached the antenna via the bracket supplied. I have also run the cable through here, and it comes up. You'll notice I've put the conduit on, and I've run it over here round past the battery. It's all cable tied in. I've actually just finished cable tying it in. Along here, cable tying it to the other bits and pieces. It then runs here, round the wiper motor, and as I said before, back round here and down into the abyss, and it then comes out behind this rubber grommeted thing, and it's cable tied to those other ones. It then comes up through the floor. It comes up through that grommet which I poked a hole in, and then I've just run it underneath the carpet and across to the actual unit. It's hidden behind the carpet, and there's the connection there. I hope you can make that out. Anyway, it's all done. Thank goodness. Of course, when you go to put your trims back, they don't always go back exactly the same way. This is what I was left with, and if you look at that, it looks like it's a Phillips head screw, but in actual fact it's a little plastic thing like this, and all they do when you push them in is they expand these little plastic tabs. Everything is plastic. So what I've had to do, and I'll show you the last one over here, you can see when you go to put it back you can't, because these things are actually expanded. So I've got a punch, a small punch, and I just carefully tap that back through, and we end up with the original fixings, which will now, they're flexible enough to go back into the slots that they're allocated to, and then we will be able to put the whole trim back on the floor. So you see we have these little square holes, and that's where the flexible bits go in. So I'll now attempt to put this back in the way it came out, which is this way, and hopefully those little things will fit back into those slots, and then I can put the little naily things back in. Otherwise I'll go and buy some damn new ones. Well, we've got it installed and everything's put back in place. Now, little test. Oh, look at that, it turned on. Wow, that's just with the ignition, and of course it will stay on if I start the engine. Oh yeah, look at that. Gotcha. So all these controls here I now have to learn how to use, and these are the ones that you actually do use to operate this machine. There are no buttons and knobs or dials or screens on the little unit itself. So, okay, now I'm going in to educate myself and read the instruction book. Okay, thanks for watching. Catch up with you on the road. Trucker, breaker, for whatever they think. I've got to get the terminology right. What an idiot.